In today's episode, we are going to discuss unemployment compensation, what it is, and if it's taxable. With the uncertainty in the economy, I wanted to make sure that I was covering severance pay as well as unemployment compensation to ensure that you are prepared for those scenarios just in case you do have to deal with them coming up soon, okay?
Welcome to the Tax Relief with Timalyn Bowens podcast. Are you behind on taxes? Is the IRS threatening you or your business? Are you overwhelmed and confused about how to resolve your tax issues? Let's join Timalyn as she explains your options and how she may be able to help. Timalyn Bowens is America's favorite EA.
Hey family, welcome to episode 54 of the Tax Relief with Timalyn Bowens podcast. In today's episode, we are going to discuss unemployment compensation, what it is, and if it's taxable. With the uncertainty in the economy, I wanted to make sure that I was covering severance pay as well as unemployment compensation to ensure that you are prepared for those scenarios just in case you do have to deal with them coming up soon, okay? So first things first, I want to thank you for listening, but I also have a favor to ask of you before we get started. If you are listening to this just out of sheer curiosity, but you know someone who is facing unemployment right now, I would love if you would share this episode with them. Okay. You all know that I'm on a personal mission to fill the tax literacy gap one taxpayer at a time. And every time you like an episode, you share an episode, or you leave a comment on your favorite podcast streaming platform, it helps me to reach new listeners, spread the information, and get that literacy gap closed. Okay? So again, thank you for listening and thank you for helping me on that mission. So first, let's take a look at what unemployment compensation is. If there is someone who has lost their job due to a layoff, so it can't be because they quit, they've lost it due to a layoff, the compensation that they receive that's paid by the state is considered unemployment compensation. And with that, in order for a taxpayer to receive it, there is specific criteria that must be satisfied. For example, having worked for a certain period of time, and to receive unemployment compensation, the person also has to actively be looking for a job. Okay? So typically, this is going to come in the form of an unemployment check or a direct deposit, and it's not going to be the same amount that the person was paid while doing their job. It's going to be a fraction of that because it's just to help them get by. It's not to totally relieve them of the money that's lost, to help encourage them to yet look for work. Okay. So when we're looking at this, we talked about it in last episode with severance pay. If there's a package received from your employer because you're being laid off, that is taxable income. Now with unemployment compensation, it's going to be a little bit different. In general, unemployment compensation is going to be taxable income, and the payments must be included in your income when you file your federal tax return. You should receive a Form 1099-G for certain government payments. This is going to show the amount that you received in unemployment compensation throughout the year, and also the amount of federal taxes that you had withheld. Now, you might be familiar with this form if in the past you've itemized your tax return and you received a state refund. because Form 1099-G is also used to show that. Okay? So when we're looking at what type of unemployment compensation is going to be taxable, if it's through your state, then yes, it is going to be taxable income. But there are other forms of payment that you may receive when you're unemployed that aren't necessarily going to be taxable. For example, if we have payments from a union that you paid into, or other types of funds that you contributed to while you were employed that would help supplement your income if you ever became unemployed. In those situations, the amount that you receive while unemployed isn't always going to be taxable because it's a fund that you contributed to. All right. So when we look at state unemployment that you receive, that's something that your employer contributed to, and they do that through FUTA, so the Federal Unemployment Tax Act, and then SUTA, so the State Unemployment Tax Act. So that's a type of insurance that goes to fund state unemployment. Okay. However, if you're making payments into your union, that is something that we're going to look at. And because it's something that you make contributions to, when you pull it, it's still a type of insurance, but it's not going to be taxable. So, with that, and because there are different criteria for each type, this is why it's very important that if you received unemployment compensation, you may want to take into consideration working with a tax professional who understands unemployment and understands the criteria and what makes it taxable income and what makes it excluded from taxable income. Now, if you're a DIY person, that's okay. I still want to make sure that you're equipped to know how to handle this, okay? The IRS does have an interactive tool, and I'll share the link down below. And it walks you through a series of questions to help you determine whether or not your unemployment compensation is going to be taxable. Now, I've already told you that if you're receiving it from your state, 100% absolutely is going to be taxable income. And again, at the end of the year, you are going to receive Form 1099-G for certain government payments. Now, Box 1 is going to show the amount that you received in unemployment income. Box 4 is going to show the amount of federal income tax that you had withheld. So when you enter this in to the return, those government payments for the unemployment compensation will be shown on Schedule 1, and then whatever you had withheld is going to show up on line 25B. That's going to be on page 2 of your 1040. Now, I'm often asked, should I have anything withheld for my unemployment? How much should I have withheld for my unemployment? Well, if you've ever taken a look at the W-4 series that I have, you'll notice those are for when you're employed or if you're receiving a pension. There's also a video in the series called Form W-4V. This form is for you to request withholding voluntarily from other type of government payments. This form can be filled out so that you have money withheld from your unemployment, but also if you are receiving Social Security. Now, the reason I bring this up and it's important is because let's say that you lost your job mid-year, okay? So you haven't made everything that you're going to anticipate to make for the year, but we know that if you are mid-year and let's say you're a single individual, you have already passed the threshold for your income to be taxable, which means you need something withheld from your unemployment compensation. They won't automatically do it because they're anticipating the amount that you receive in unemployment each month to be less than the standard deduction. So, for example, if you're a single individual in 2025, the standard deduction is going to be $15,000 for you. If you lost your job mid year, you've already made more than $15,000. So, anything that you make after that is going to also be taxable. So if you're receiving unemployment compensation, depending on the tax bracket you're in, you may want to have 10, 12, or 20% of what you're receiving withheld for taxes. This is where you would fill out Form W4V and turn it into the unemployment office to let them know how much you want withheld from the unemployment payments that you're receiving. Okay? When you do this, it will help you avoid having a balance when you go to file your taxes at the end of the year. Now, I already mentioned you'll receive a Form 1099-G. Unfortunately, some people are actually the victims of unemployment fraud. This means that someone stole your identity and they filed a claim for unemployment under your name. State unemployment agencies are going to file that Form 1099-G at the end of the year, and it's going to go to whoever's social security number it matches. Excuse me. So, with that being said, if you receive a 1099-G and you know you didn't receive any unemployment income, you will receive that with the inaccurate amounts for there. What you want to do is contact the Department of Labor, okay? The IRS is going to also allow you to get what we call an IP PIN. This is an identity protection number, okay? With that, that means that somebody cannot file a tax return without that PIN. This is something that you will want to take into consideration because in the future, you don't want anybody filing a tax return using your social security number as well. If you need more information about how to set up an IP PIN, I'll also have that linked below. And I have the information down below for how to report fraud to the Department of Labor if you find yourself being the victim of unemployment fraud. Now, I know if you were dealing with this in real time, that was a lot to take in, but very quickly, let's do a recap. For unemployment compensation, so anything that you receive while unemployed, that is typically going to be taxable income. There is an exception with workers' compensation. That is not going to be taxable income. If you were unsure, because maybe the payments are from a private unemployment fund, maybe they're payments by a union, maybe you were a state worker not covered by the state's unemployment compensation law, that's when I would recommend that you work with a tax professional to prepare your taxes for that year to determine whether or not that's going to be taxable income. Okay? When you receive your tax documents, remember if this is taxable, you should receive Form 1099-G for certain government payments. Now, if you know that the income was taxable and you didn't receive that form, you will still want to report this as other income on your Schedule 1. Okay? I hope that this information was useful to you. If you have any questions about this episode, my contact information is down below. And remember, if you need help with preparing a tax return that has unemployment compensation, or you just would like a paid consultation with me, you can do that by visiting www.bowenstaxsolutions.com and you can book that call because I want to help you ensure that this doesn't turn into a tax problem later. But don't forget, it doesn't have to be me that you book the call with. Just make sure that you get the help you need. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen today. I'd like to thank Jim Ray Consulting Services for helping me get this message out to you. I hope you found the information helpful. Did you know 1 in 50 people have a tax problem? Please share this episode with your friends and family because you never know who may need help. Again, thanks for listening. Hey, just as a reminder, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It provides a framework and possible solutions for solving your tax problems, but it is not legally binding. Please consult your tax professional regarding your specific tax situation.